So I take her to the hospital today, so I'll talk more about my drama life here in a little bit, but I thought I'd talk about off-grid living. I know that some people come to my channel for both. I don't think there's enough drama on my channel to actually come here for drama, but that's what people come here for, so I'll tell you about my drama. Kind of cold outside today. It's been raining a lot this week. It's pretty nasty out. Hard to walk in the yard. Around the generator has actually become sloppy muddy because, you know, I go over there and start the generator at least once a day. The chicken coop is just a mud pit. I feel bad for them, but they seem to be happy in it. So it's kind of chilly, and I thought I'd come inside and sit in front of the fire. Haven't had to start the wood stove quite as much here recently. This is the season where things become a real problem for us because it's so wet outside. The wood outside absorbs a lot of moisture. Now, there's two different types of moisture when you're talking about firewood. The first type of moisture is you cut the tree down and it is green. And it takes about 2 years for oak, probably about 3 years for hickory, I'm starting to see, for that to dry out enough that you can use it in these new modern EPE wood stoves. It's got to be below 20% moisture content or less. And most of our oak on that first row, I've showed you my rows, I got 3 rows out there, all of it is below 20%. But when it rains, even when we have it covered up, water accumulates on the firewood. It isn't a huge issue. It's not like I got to let it dry out for 2 years. What I got to do is I got to bring it in and set it by the fire, and then that rainwater evaporates out. I don't understand the science behind it, but that's just the way I've experienced it. You got 2 types of wetness, the green wetness and then the water absorption wetness. Well, here it is springtime and it's just been raining nonstop. It is hard for me to bring in firewood. Now what I do is when I bring it up, we didn't split it small enough when we got the firewood. We didn't know what kind of stove we were going to get. So we split it to the size that the old Franklin wood stove took. That wood stove was used as an outdoor heat exchanger, and we figured they were all pretty similar. Well, when we got this, that firewood did fit in there just fine. So we continued splitting all the firewood to that size. But when we actually started using it, we realized, no, that's way too much. What we do is we have 2 pieces, and this is a little big. It needs to be split one more time, but this one's really hard to split because it's got a big old knot in it, so it just doesn't want to split, but it should be split again. What we'll do is we'll cut this log in half, and then we'll run that 2 pieces, what I'm going to call north and south. And then we take 2 small pieces and we run it east and west. And then we take 2 more really small pieces. Like I said, this one's way too big. And then we put it right on top, north and south. Now that top one again, we cut this in half. So what I do is when we bring it up to the house, I sit down and I re-split it again. I just take the hatchet and the little 5-pound hammer just to get them to the size that works well in here. Like that is from the hatchet. That's me trying to split it with the hatchet. It just wouldn't split because of the knot. Then I test it to make sure that it's below 20%. We still have a few pieces, believe it or not, that are above 20%, even though they're 2 years old. What it is the bark, I've noticed, if it's got bark all the way around it, holds that moisture in a little bit longer than if it's split. So you have a lot of pieces that we didn't split because, I mean, they're 3 or 4 inches in diameter. Well, even some of them that have bark on one side, and depending on how it was stacked, may be too much moisture. So what I've been noticing is if the bark is on top, the moisture content is around 21-22%. Now you're going to think, oh no, that's fine, you can use 21-22%. I would prefer not, because this year has been fantastic with the dryness. The window hasn't gotten dirty, the chimney hasn't gotten dirty, so I want to keep it dry. So I've been throwing those pieces to the side and another stack right out here to make sure that it gets another year to dry. We've got plenty of firewood, so why not do it? So here it is raining, which throws the moisture reader off a little bit. And so pieces that I think should be 15% are reading 20-22% because of the rain. What that means is I got to bring it in here and dry and then test it again. The problem with that is in order to test it, you got to split it. Otherwise, the outside is perfectly dry, but it's the inside that you're wanting to see. So that means I would have to bring the firewood in, let it dry from the rainwater, take it back outside and split it, test it to make sure it's below 20%. That's a lot of carrying around. So I try to keep 2 days worth of firewood in here at all times. Now during the early winter, I keep 2 huge stacks in here all winter long. But as the spring has drawn closer, I've been keeping about 2 days. I have learned that was a mistake. I should have kept more in here. The reason I didn't want to bring a lot in here is if it all of a sudden got a warm snap in here, I'd have all this firewood that I'd have to carry back out. So I was just being cautious and only bringing in, well, 2 days over here, 2 days over here. That gave me 4 days total. Well, with all the rain, I haven't been able to split any and test it to make sure that it's dry. So I'm starting to run low. So hopefully it doesn't rain tonight. Then tomorrow I can bring some in. We still got 3 pieces in here. That should give me another burn, and we should be okay then. Now last year, when about this time hit, we used a buddy heater because we didn't have any dry firewood by the end of last year. Problem is the propane, we were going through it pretty quick. Now with the buddy heater, you're constantly getting up, turning it on, shutting it off. But the propane, we were using at least a 20-pound tank at least once a week. That's $15 a week for heat in the house when we have free heat. Now people are going to just say, you're just too picky. Yep, I'm too picky. Carolyn will attest to that. It's just in my personality that I'm not going to allow this wood stove to burn inefficiently. I'm not going to let the creosote build up on the window, which means it's building up on the chimney. It means I got to get up on the roof and I got to clean it out, risking injury if I fall off. So why do all that when all I really got to do is just do it correctly? Tomorrow I'll go out there and I'll split some more firewood. I'm just going to have to trust that it's going to be dry. I kind of know what a dry log looks like, kind of. Sometimes I've been fooled. But if I get one piece in here that's a little wet, it's not a huge issue. It's when I have several pieces. I'll knock on it. You can hear the tone like a 2x4 when you knock on it. It sounds more hollow when it's dry. The weight, it's obvious that it's dry. Now the other thing Carolyn's been doing is she's been cutting a ton of kindling. And this has helped out a lot. We can burn the kindling by itself. It burns real hot, real fast, and then dies off. And she kind of likes it that way in the springtime. So we're gonna actually start doing more of this the more we get into spring. Sorry for the interruption. The hospital just called and I'll brief you on that in just a minute. So Carolyn has a lot of this kindling cut up, which will help out on these warmer days. We don't have to burn it quite as hot, and we can just knock off that chill that we get sometimes in the morning time. We put less firewood in there the other day. It just didn't want to take off. If you don't have multiple pieces stacked up, it just doesn't want to burn. So we had the 2 on the bottom from north and south, and then we had 1 on top, and it just didn't want to take off. By the time it actually started going, the window had gotten really dirty for some reason, like there was creosote in it. So I'm not sure why that happened. Everything was tested. There was no moisture in the firewood. Also, we put the kindling in between those 2 pieces on the bottom. That helps get it good and hot. Now, some people say to do a top-down burn. Carolyn kind of agrees with that assessment. I just can't seem to get that to work. Now, again, I'm pretty picky because I don't want the glass to get dirty because I'm the one that's got to get up on the chimney. I see a lot of these YouTubers saying the same thing, but every time their window is just caked with creosote. If your window's caked with creosote, your chimney's caked with creosote and you're at risk for fire. So I think we've got a good solid plan to avoid using the buddy heater this year. Not saying that we're going to get away without using it. I've got it up in the attic. It's difficult to get to. That way it keeps me from just going and lighting it up. I was telling you about the buddy heater. The buddy heater you've got to get up and turn on and turn off. Now you could get a blue flame heater and they work much like a buddy heater. As a matter of fact, I think in some cases these companies are kind of the same company. Hang on the wall. It's a propane heater. And a lot of people are concerned about carbon monoxide, but just like a buddy heater, the blue flame is the reason there is little or no carbon monoxide. It's when you start getting a yellow flame is when you get the carbon monoxide. That's why it's called a blue flame. You can see it on these Coleman camp stoves. You'll have a blue flame. Once it starts to turn yellow, then you know that the burners are gotten dirty and you're not getting enough oxygen. What it is as the oxygen level depletes, the carbon monoxide level increases. So with the buddy heater, it has an oxygen sensor. So if there's not enough oxygen in the house, the buddy heater will shut off. Now I had another person tell me, I don't know why you start your heater wood furnace at 60 degrees. You need to wait until it gets down to 45 degrees. You need to learn how to adapt to the temperatures. First of all, why do I want to be uncomfortable? I have plenty of firewood. I worked really hard to get it. I'm happy staying at a temperature that's comfortable. Now I do realize it gets a little hot in here occasionally. Now, that's because I've got too much firewood in there. People tell me to get a smaller wood stove. Well, that doesn't mean anything. You know, smaller wood stove just means you're putting smaller wood in. But then what am I going to do when it gets cold again and I need a bigger wood stove? Am I just going to keep taking this one and out? So what I got to do is learn how to adjust it in such a fashion that there's enough stacks of wood on it, but small enough wood. So that's why we're going to do the kindling, for example, is it's small wood, but I can still stack it so it will catch a good flame. But I'm not going to wait until it gets down to 45 degrees before I turn on the wood stove. If it's getting down to 45 degrees in the house, that means the temperatures outside are below freezing. We have our water tank outside. So we take hot air from inside through ventilation and blow it into the water tank outside. I talked about having to take her to the hospital. As you know, I had to take the cat in to get her spayed. Came here, she was really small. And so we thought she was probably under a year old. We have been feeding her. We finally got her pretty accustomed to the house. She comes in on her own. She's very friendly. We thought somebody must have dropped her off. So we took her into the vet today. It has done nothing but drive me mad. I feel so bad that I had to take her into the vet. She just did not want to go. I feel so terrible for her. So I got an interruption on the phone call there. It was the vet calling and saying that she's already been spayed. So my mistake. I didn't think that they would actually do a surgery on a cat or an animal if they already had the procedure done. But he opened her up, said, yeah, she'd been spayed, and then they sewed her back up. So we got to pay for all that. I think he said he's going to give us a discount. Fingers crossed. But he says she's a little bit older than a year old, which I never told him how old she was. We don't know. I said we've had her less than a year, but they're calculating this out to be that she was, I was very clear with him. She just showed up. He says she's a little overweight, which I'm really amazed by because I just don't feel like we fielded her that much. Of course, Carolyn probably would argue with me. She thinks she's overweight too, but I just don't see it. So if you'll click this up next box to take you to a video where I was talking about how they changed the law and didn't grandfather anybody in. So I hope I can inspire you to keep yourself warm while you're living your dreams. Thanks for watching.